Let's go! Are you kidding me? Brian Kelly, national championship? I know everything has just started during the Brian Kelly era, but LSU has set a championship standard, and as many of you know, there is a stat that is centered around the LSU coaching job. Each of the last three coaches at LSU has won a national championship, and they did so in rarely but very interestingly quick fashion. So, does LSU need a national championship from Brian Kelly in the first 3 years? Well, let's actually hear from someone that knows a thing or two about winning one.
Well, I don't know what they've discussed, but I know that's the expectation there at LSU, and they want it, and they want it now. But you know what? You ought to be able to do it at LSU, and they gave me 3 years, which was very fair. You should be able to win it. Get in 3 years, you should be able to do it.
So that via radio in Jacksonville, 1010XL, and as you can see, Ed Orgeron does not mind putting pressure on Brian Kelly. And as you guys saw with the highlighted rows here, these were the years that the coaches, Nick, Les, and Ed, won national championships. And it actually took Nick Saban the longest to win a national championship. It was year 4, whereas with Ed and Les, it only took year 3. Now, of course, Nick had to actually get the ball rolling, and Ed and Les had the keys to the Ferrari. But, still, Brian Kelly, with what Ed Orgeron left LSU, has to do far more of a rebuilding job than what Ed had to do after Les. And we touched on this during the season game-by-game prediction piece, that the SEC is just more difficult than when those guys were coaching. Of course, Nick did not have to go up against Alabama because, two people can't be at the same place at once. And thank goodness they can't clone Nick Saban. Also, Les Miles won his national championships during the early Saban years. And then, of course, Ed Orgeron, once again, had Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, and a magical set of players. So the thing is, the first thing we need to recognize is the SEC is more deep than it's ever has been before. Now, for a lot of you, excuses just don't add up, especially when you're paying a guy $10 million a year. And like we said, the last 3 coaches have won national championships. But when those guys won their championships, Arkansas, Ole Miss, and Mississippi State had their own good years, but never were all 3 as strong as they are at the same time. Florida, we'll see what happens with Billy Napier as far as the teams that you play each and every year on the schedule. And Texas A&M was yet to be recruiting at a top 5 national level. So we have to come to this realization right now that maybe a national championship in the first 3 years is not necessarily unattainable, but it's way harder. The SEC is just way more difficult than what it was when those guys made their runs. Now, but maybe Ed Orgeron does have a point. Maybe Brian Kelly absolutely has to win a college football playoff Final Four in the next 3 seasons. So let's take a look at the data. Now, first thing we need to come to realize is the college football playoff format is changing, but it's not changing within the next 4 seasons. The college football playoff format will be in place until the end of the 2025 season. The second fact is Texas and Oklahoma will not be joining the SEC until the summer of 2025. And we've already broke down how difficult the 2022 schedule is. It is floating in the top right corner of your screen, or it will be linked down below. But what I want to include is the 2023 schedule, okay? So, look, a lot of us are really excited about the first year under Brian Kelly, but as you guys saw yesterday in the video, a very smart Vegas sharp has LSU as a 5-win team. So if you want to see what that's all about, once again, check out our schedule prediction. But for me, the year that I think LSU would have its best shot to win a national championship is actually the next year, right, in 2023, and for a few reasons. As you can see, Florida State, I just don't know if they're ever going to get that ball moving there. And yes, this is a neutral site game in Florida, so they're going to be pretty amped up about it. But still, I just don't see Florida State actually turning into anything special. But the more important thing here is, as you guys heard earlier, LSU every year plays 7 SEC teams the same, right? It's the other 6 SEC West schools and Florida as the permanent cross-division rival. Now, you won't hear me go on my soapbox about how much I hate that rule and how it sets the SEC back, but still, the issue, though, one of the big keys in winning a national championship is that you got to have some luck with the permanent cross-division rival. So back in 2019, LSU got to play their 8th SEC game versus Vanderbilt at Vanderbilt. So they drew a really soft permanent cross-division rival. Now, the 2019 LSU team would have beaten whoever it would have been, and they ended up playing all the best teams in the East anyway, but still, it was a good draw. And as you can see here, Missouri is the team that they draw, and Missouri is going to be forever terrible unless Drew Lock comes back. So next year might actually be the year, because that's going to be year 3 for that really strong 2021 class with Mason Smith, Jack Besh, Malik Neighbors, Brian Thomas Jr., and that crew. So that actually, year 2 of the Brian Kelly regime might actually be the best year, or it could also be year 3. Now, I think USC is going to be really good under Lincoln Riley, but at the same time, this is, going to be the first year with a new starter at quarterback for them. We'll see how that works out. But honestly, in 2024, LSU plays 2 non-conference Power 5 teams in UCLA coming to Tiger Stadium. We'll see how good they are. But as you guys saw back in 2019, because of the 6-year rotation, this will be the first time LSU played Vanderbilt since 2019. That is the team that they draw as the non-permanent cross-division rival, which is absolutely huge. And if LSU were to win the national championship this year, this would be, like Ed Orgeron said, year 3 of the Brian Kelly regime. But let me show you why Brian Kelly must get it done in the first 3 years, and it's simply because of this, okay? By far the most brutal LSU schedule ever. Now, once again, if Nick Saban retires, that would change, but you have to go to Clemson, you have to go to Alabama, and you have to go to Georgia. Now, that is as murderer's row as it's going to get. This is arguably the 3 best programs of the past 5 years, all on the road, all on the same schedule. You can argue Ohio State if you want, but still, honestly, these are the 3 best, and that's just brutal. There's just no other way around it. And if we're being honest, yes, LSU could have a Joe Burrow magically appear in 2025. Hopefully that's Walker Howard or whoever else this year. But you're just not going to win all 3 of these games. It's really difficult to do so. And the likelihood of LSU going to the playoff in year 4 under the Brian Kelly regime is very, very, very small. So, like I said, Ed Orgeron has a point. Boom, I'm looking at you. Yes, you. Okay, so this is where things get a little spicy. And as many of you know, if you stay till the end of the video, I always like to give you a little extra nugget, okay? And today's nugget is this photo. It is chilling, this photo, because you see right here, Nick Saban is staring into the eyes of Dabo Swinney, who, of course, is Nick's future replacement. And I'm kidding, Clemson fans, calm down. But what's crazy is this could be a future playoff photo, but obviously with LSU and Lincoln Riley with USC. Now, it's more likely if it's a college football playoff field of 12 teams than 4 teams, because obviously LSU and Alabama are in the same conference, but that's not prevented 2 SEC teams from getting into the college football playoff in a 4-team format anyway. So, that would be absolutely crazy, and they would absolutely have to recreate this pretty iconic photo. But look, there are a few other things as to why 2024 is going to be the year. Outside of the framework recruiting class, which was the 2021 class, which is loaded, it's also the locations of where the college football playoff games would be. So, first off, if you are one of those people that believes in the odd number year thing, because obviously 2003, 07, 2011, and 2019 were all odd number years, then once again 2023 would be an odd number year. And then the 2024 playoff locations one of the semifinal games actually is in New Orleans. So if LSU was the number 1 seed, they would get to play that game in New Orleans, or if they reached the final, they would get to play in Houston, which, as many of you know, Houston is a huge LSU alumni base, and LSU has practiced and played at NRG Stadium multiple times over the past decade. So that would be also something else as to why that would be the year. And look, I believe in Lincoln Riley at USC. I really do. So winning that game in Vegas, you guys know how important season opener games are to LSU's success. So that would obviously be a very difficult game to win in season opener format, but of course you could still make the playoff after that. At the end of this video, I do also need to acknowledge that maybe expansion does push itself forward. Maybe the SEC expansion does push itself forward, but still that money can do weird things. So if there was enough money to be paid to get all of that expedited, then obviously this would make this entire video all for naught. But because of the way the television contracts work, I highly doubt that's going to be the case. And to go one step further, it is important to understand that college football is not a fair game, right? The game is changing so much with the portal and name, image, and likeness. There's no telling what the sport's going to look like in the next 5 years. But this point more so has to deal with LSU. So, all 3 of the LSU National Championship teams are unique in and of itself, in that the 03 team did not have to play USC in a playoff format. That asterisk will always be there, and it's stupid, but still. The 07 team, of course, is the only 2-loss national championship team, which was obviously a whole bunch of luck. And then the 2019 team was just miraculous in and of itself of how great it actually became, not only offensively, but defensively. And LSU that year not only had their best player, arguably of all time, well, it's not really arguable, it's Joe Burrow. It also had its best coordinator in Dave Aranda. Will LSU ever have a coordinator as good as Dave Aranda again, and an offense as good as Slinger and Brady's? I don't know, but once again, it's going to be hard to replicate that. So, those are just a few extra notes, but they don't include that. All people care about is you actually hoisting the trophy, and you're going to have to get a miraculous out of body break for that to happen. And that's not me taking away from those national championship teams, but it's just the truth. And to add one extra break to the year 2 Brian Kelly for national championship campaign is, Nick Saban will be replacing a Heisman Trophy quarterback and potential Heisman Trophy pass rusher. And a lot of teams, Arkansas will be replacing a quarterback, Mississippi State, Florida, if Anthony Richardson has a big year. What if Haynes King has a big year at Texas A&M? All those guys could be gone. Now, LSU might also be replacing a quarterback as well, but that's just another break for LSU. And this is not me guaranteeing LSU winning a title, but the championship window is there for Brian Kelly to win one in 2023 faster than any of his predecessors. Now, comment down below. Do you think Brian Kelly... Let's actually change the comment down below question. Do you think Brian Kelly will win a national championship in 2024? Let me know what you think down below. It is Power Hour LSU Bottom. Oh, tonight we're doing some chicken curry. Let's go.